This is Rauta and Steelfest 2022. One of the most anticipated interview here happening in Hyvinkää and the event we're talking about. You guessed it right, you probably read the line, text, information, what you call it, Inquisition. And then I have one of these random dudes. Random dude number one. You have a name.
Dagon?
Is that after Lovecraftian thing?
No. Philistine mythology.
So, can you elaborate on that?
When I was searching for, I like calling it a cult name. When I was searching for my cult name back in '94, I wanted something that wasn't so much demonic, generic, satanic based, but something, now it seems pretty standard to do, but something that was rooted deeper into a mythology historically. And I always had a love and a passion for the sea, for the ocean, for the water. And I liked how it sounded. And when I found the name Dagon, I thought, okay, I'll take that name. And that was it. A little simple, but...
Let's also talk about the name of the band.
Okay.
Why did you want to go under the name of Inquisition?
That's a good question. So when I have to be careful, because if I get into the history of Inquisition, I start going further back, because I had 3 bands before Inquisition that the duration was very short periods of each band. But let's just say right before Inquisition, I had a band named Guillotine. And that lasted for about 2 years. We only had rehearsals. We sounded like Pleasure to Kill of Creator, something like that. And one day I was reading, I think it was Temegatherian, Celtic Frost thanks list, and one of the bands he had thanked was a band, Guillotine, from Switzerland. And me just kind of being OCD, obsessive about having a unique name, I thought, well, I have to change it. There's already a Guillotine. So for about 3 months, I thought I need something medieval-esque, something like in the Gothic period.
Even though you're American, you don't really have the medieval ages.
Yes. Nothing. To me, it didn't matter as far as cultural links. To me personally, it was just the world as a whole. And my passion even then was always it was never anything like the American West or South American history and back then, a little bit of my ignorance is I always equated medieval history to something European, but I didn't look at it that way. I just thought a lot of dark things happen in the medieval world. What can that be? And I read about the Inquisition. That's perfect.
That's kind of a brutal name, even more than Guillotine, which is more just, in case people don't know, but decapitating people. But Inquisition is even more brutal. It could be a death metal name.
Absolutely. And we are in a different period of time within metal now, but in the old days, all my friends kept asking me, that's a Catholic institution, why are you using that? And back then, we're talking 1989, when I came up with the name. I was 17, and I told them right off the bat, I said, you need to understand, this isn't about religion itself, it's about what was behind it.
Like what was actually happening.
What was happening, what happened, what's documented, what happened, and the whole persecution mania, to call that, behind that, and the everything from, on a lighter scale of things, which isn't light, the tortures within itself, and the persecution of anybody that was not part of their established religion of the time. There's a lot of things that equate to the dark side of our music. Is a good parallel of the name in itself, not knowing back then that we would evolve eventually into what we know as black metal today.
Now, what is very important people to know is that your background. I mean, you already had a multitude of questions related to that. I even got questioned during this festival is Inquisition more an American band or a Colombian band, or what kind of a hybrid? Well, so let's get it done with. What's Inquisition's history like that?
I like that. Let's get it done with. So probably the best answer is probably the answer that would frustrate most people, which is there can be one answer to that, but it's not. It's a little of everything.
This is a very American way to answer it.
Well, it is, because you have a deep history that started in two different locations.
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay, well, so right now, for a very long time, I'm going to shoot straight forward on this interview.
Let's do it.
Inquisition is an American band for the duration since we've done all our full-length albums. The demo days of Inquisition are what I call the Colombia days. I'm not denying anything of myself culturally. Nobody needs to be hypersensitive that I'm negating something that started in Colombia. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My mother is Colombian. I travel there. I have family there. We have houses there. So I have roots there. But what would be very unfair would to deny the fact that every single full-length album I have written in the beautiful state of Washington, looking at the North Cascade Mountains around me, inspiring myself from the beautiful forest that we have there. No, we don't have an ancient medieval history in the sense that you do here. But the world in itself, Earth, it's gorgeous where I live. And that's what's inspired me so much outside of other musical inspirations. So the geography of where I've been living since 96, and you also add the fact that the drummer, Incubus, is from the Northwest. I've been a citizen. I was born there. So ever since Infernal Regions, it's an American band.
So let's get it straight.
Yeah.
Let's get it a little bit of a dirty Rauta way. So these guys were raised on huge amounts of Colombian coke, then getting creative.
I was. Yeah.
Really, creating the Cascadian Mountains, spoiled by crunch music.
Well,
no, this is just joking around.
Oh no! I can add to that. I can make it even better. But yes, so what we could do is here. If you allow me to create one question in this interview,
definitely.
What inspired you when you lived in Colombia? What inspired you living in the United States?
The best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds. Well, first of all, there would be the social issues in itself that I lived since a very young age. When I moved, you have to understand, I moved when I was 11 years old to Colombia in 1983. Didn't speak the language. My mother put me into
But now you're like
a military school.
Okay.
Interned. My family didn't live there. I was alone, and great mother and everything. However, what she wanted me to live was a stronger life, learn a little bit more about life, and in a tough love manner. And so she put me into a military school in 1983.
It's got to be a hard one.
Yes, and I learned the language like that in 6 months. By 1985 is when I discovered metal. We had metal down there since early 80s, just like you did here. Everything that was happening here was going on.
But suddenly all muchas gracias and everything.
Sí, hablaba muy bien ya a los 2 años.
That is why I was trying to pick that one.
Sí. But so what I lived as a person. Now here is where Colombians will get sensitive if I say we're not a Colombian band, because the role of society itself and what I was living and the hardships, not hardships, I mean, I had everything I needed, but what was going around, some of the things you hear about Colombia in the 80s, that's real. Yes, I saw the drive-by shootings. Yes, I witnessed death many occasions. Yes, I saw the guy getting chopped up, hacked up in a machete fight. Anyone watching this interview that lived the interviews knew it was common. Something as simple as a road rage. Next thing you know, 2 guys getting out of their car, they got machetes, they're going at it, guys' guts spilling out. I saw all that at a young age. And one way or another, it gets into the subconscious and it forms you and it hardens you. And then when you discover, now changing the subject, you discover music like metal.
It's like a ventilation of things.
I don't know. I think a lot of people think that consciously they got into metal, like, oh, this is an expressive. No, I just loved how the guitar sounded. I just loved metal. I loved how it sounded. But I think the subconsciously, there's something of an adrenaline rush within metal, and then the things that you're living and going around you, if there's a lot of excitement, be it good or bad. In other words, I was not in a safe place. You're
Definitely.
always on edge, and I don't want to go. I could keep going. I can go pretty deep here, so I have to watch. But I do believe that, we're an emotional sponge that absorbs water. We absorb emotions that are going on around us. And as a kid, your brain is so sensitive. We're absorbing so many things that form us, shape us. And I do think that this music shaped us. But I also think the things I saw and I lived and witnessed play a huge role. And I don't know. From there, it gets a little bit Freudian and psychological. So that's not my area. But Colombia has a huge role in that sense. What made me as a person, and this person writes music for Inquisition.
Then you moved to
the United States. Now, what influenced me within the United States also comes from me as a person. And for some people, I'm saying the obvious, but I think a lot of us in metal, we forget that some of us writers, we're not just writing to sound like other bands we like. We're not just writing only to fit into a grid of a specific sound. Okay, this is how black metal should sound, that's all right. No, we are also writing truly from who we are. This brain and mind does create something
that is not always something like conscious, but it's something like we cannot even control, but it kind of takes us into places.
Yes, and I think a lot of songwriters and other genres of music get more credit for that. But I think within rock and roll in itself and metal, I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of songwriters, great or not, are not just writing for metal or trying to fit into the metal style. Their life and their lifestyle and what they've lived and what they've gone through does influence how their specific style comes out.
Could we even make the statement that a lot of us who are writing music, including just you, me, or just anybody doing music, we're kind of like possessed by something that really, really cannot describe? Like something like, I wouldn't say as like otherworldly, but something that is like not so easy to give a name or put my finger on. Like something is giving the drive, but we cannot really describe it.
So I think in a narrower sense, you almost answered yourself. So you just,
God damn it.
So your question, yes to everything. And I think going deeper into thought as fast as I can here is
yes to everything.
We'd be
yes sir.
We're opening, so what they call, we're getting into the forest now, and we can start opening doors. And so I have a problem. For me, it's not a problem, but I can really, really, really analyze things. And in an interview, that's not always an advantage. I think we fail sometimes let's put it this way. So we're here because of this music.
Yes.
I'm going to go a little off a little bit, but it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected.
So I'm here because I play music, and I'm here because of the music. Everything equates to music. We're not all here just to hang out, and I mean, if the music stops on stage,
there would be nobody.
Well, maybe they'd stick around for the beer. I don't know, but overall, this isn't some big philosophical convention.
No, it's like a best of both worlds in that sense as well.
But it's ironic that also where you see a lot of these people drunk, having a good time, laughing, there's a lot of deep minds behind that. There's a lot of deep thinkers in this music. I don't just mean black metal. I mean everything from experimental, electronic, harsh industrial to black metal. Anything that pushes the limits. I think there's I shouldn't say it's anything, but let's say within the arts, especially the creators that push limits, that break down walls and barriers.
Kick down the fences.
Yes, I don't think it's just rooted in human emotion, meaning anger or sadness or depression. I think there's also a lot of intelligence and there's a lot of reasoning behind what they're doing, but it comes out as
creativity,
rebellious and animalistic. And so what am I trying to get to with that? What I'm trying to get to with that is, so we are beings and we are thinkers, a lot of us in this music. But the other thing that brings us here is, so we need to go over, revise your question again. Your question was, remind me what it was, because you sort of answered it, is you can't put your finger on one thing.
You cannot put my finger on one thing, like what gets done because of this and that, like what drives us to create
Correct.
all those melodies and riffs and lyrics and things which eventually become albums.
Yes. So I would say, to summarize what I just said, in a very shallow, I wasn't able to go too far into that topic, but we are a mind. Be it the creator of the music, of the song, the art, or the listener. We are, within metal itself, we are pretty much a deep thinking, very emotional species of person.
Kind of a hive mind?
Yeah, well, there's I think a lot of us in this music are very emotional people, but we're also we're also somewhat, believe it or not, I always mention this to Incubus, the drummer, that it's ironic how so many people want to think of themselves as misanthropic and antisocial. And
which we are not in fact.
No, it's actually the most emotional and sensitive and social breed of people I've ever seen.
After we leave, they help you out.
Pardon me?
I'm the guy who used to play in Children before. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, my name's Chris.
Nice to meet you.
In black metal is anti-Christian. Okay, I've been nagging Hellhammer in Mayhem years now for a trigger sound and stopped using it. Started now again, but
no, but I'll relieve you.
Yeah.
I think he did mention something I think ties into what I just said, is before anything else, before this, if we were to, don't take this literally, but if we were to strip ourselves of our clothing, strip ourselves of our name, all your belongings, I know that's not the most original example. I'm sure we've heard this metaphor before. Your house, everything gets burned down. You're a nothing. Who are you?
Yeah.
And I think what we would encounter is the same spirit that you're speaking of on stage. On stage, what's surfacing is the primordial you, the person without a name, the person without the clothing, and that's your metaphor of the triggers versus.
That's actually something.
And then you talk about the primordial, this is a shitty band, but sorry.
But that's actually something that we had to talk about, like previously with some friends, about Finnish sauna. It's like when you strip off all your earthly belongings, you're basically bare naked, and you get to this very kind of a primordial state, like where you have nothing but your, obviously skin, hair, maybe your wedding ring or whatever, and nobody gives a damn about your titles, whether you be a CEO of, say, Microsoft, or whether you're just like a poor homeless kid.
Correct.
When you go to the sauna, you have nothing but yourself.
Correct.
Everything is kind of equal. There's nothing about gender or age or what kind of titles you have,
you know what
kind of a car you're driving, what kind of a house you own, because everything is then coming down to the very, very big.
And hold your thought. Don't forget what you were going to say if you have a point, because I don't want to take it away. But think about it. I wonder if this is just something that comes to mind right now. What if a lot of the theatrics in black metal, speaking for black metal, what if, I wonder, this is a legitimate question I have here, I wonder if a lot of these theatrics that we say, well, but the guy's not really like that on stage, off stage, he's another, but maybe that bare naked person, we're seeking that within our music.
Yes.
That's really what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're trying to shred everything of our modern day. It's not just an act. It's not just about being an artist.
You blew out my thoughts there.
Right, but here's where it gets more tied into something social. The social aspect of metal is my roots are I discovered heavy metal in the 80s. There was nothing spiritual behind it. It was rock and roll, okay? But in the 90s, I discovered this beautiful, magnificent spirituality called black metal. Spirituality through music is what I call it. But I held on to my heavy metal roots. So that I think that's where there was this hybrid of still keeping things metal.
So to talk about this primordial stuff, and I'm a little bit reflecting here, is like I remember when I first heard heavy metal music, it was Iron Maiden, but obviously me as a 7 years or 8 years
It's
old.
about where you started?
Yep, like it was all about just music.
So real quick, I'm dying to ask you this. So your beginnings were with bands like Iron Maiden.
Yes.
You were 7.
7 or 8.
What year was that?
That was 82, I think.
Wow, okay.
So, but it took like 10 years more, and a little bit more actually,
Okay.
to bands like, Pantera, Metallica,
Okay.
Slayer, and suddenly you're like, wow, finding about these black metal bands. And then it's very started to click.
But wait, did you evolve into thrash or death metal or?
Thrash and death metal pretty much hand in hand.
Okay.
And eventually, when I encountered, I had this anti-Christianity within me, like from the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out there was music that was about anti-Christianity,
companion
it was
to that.
suddenly like I found my wife.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And for
A
me,
match. You found a match.
Yeah, exactly. Tinder match.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like a magic moment to find this music that was actually giving answers to all my questions and putting things like together, like a yin and yang kind of thing.
Before it was just music.
Yeah, it was like a metal music and an ideology or
Maybe some light topics.
like philosophical topics. But how it was for you? What can you start or bring these two together?
Well, the good thing is that question ties back in to where I was going with my second part, which was, I guess I should answer that right away. It truly was, so the obsession, the love I had for thrash metal was so much, I didn't need anything else. Nothing was missing. What was missing, this is very important, we have to look at a timeline. And if you go to about 1990, I was a thrash metal maniac. I was still listening. Yes, a lot of us were. But speaking of myself, by 1990, thrash metal, the scene as I knew it was no longer. It was, I remember when Creator Coma of Souls came out, or am I wrong, 91, somewhere around there. I liked it. It was good. It was okay. But, it's a good album. But things were not like they were. Where it wasn't like Obsessed by Cruelty Sodom. It wasn't, that vibe. And things were missing for me musically. So I noticed people moving on. I had a lot of friends moving on into like crusty grindcore and death metal, and I liked it. I liked it all. But I was a very guitar-driven guy, and there was something missing. So I didn't really evolve into death metal. Or these are important points I'm making, because what it's going to explain to you is what popped, what blew up, what exploded for me with black metal, and what exploded for me mentally and emotionally for me was early 90s. Now we're looking at 1993.
Which was a very, very important stage in second wave.
Up until 1990, the music I truly loved and played and wrote was real to me until 1990. After 90, things got boring to me. Things were not, I was into some of the Bay Area thrash, later Forbidden, Violence, all that stuff. I liked it.
Cool bands anyway.
Great, I loved them. Dark, probably one of my last modern classics of the time in thrash was in 1989. Dark Angel, Leave Scars. It's a masterpiece, I think. Dark, deep, but it was thrash. Anyway, so 1990, that died for me. Things were not great. So there was for 3 years, 90 to 93, I was listening to old classics, all the things I heard in the 80s.
So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
On the fence.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends that were, for example, into Impetigo and what was it, Deceased, or just all the early death metal, and I liked it, but there was something missing that didn't grab me, and it wasn't about they were too brutal. It was the opposite. They were really brutal, but the guitars weren't there for me. And then here's what happened. I had already heard when Die Mysteries Don Satanas came out from Mayhem, a friend of mine down in Colombia had the promo advance.
Okay.
So I did hear it. At the time, I don't know if I heard it before it came out or if I heard it when it was about.
But very fresh anyway.
Yeah, but he had like 4 songs advance tape dubbed.
Yeah.
So I heard that and it was mind-blowing.
I can imagine.
Yes. Now,
had I been there, 1993.
Yes. So I heard that, but right around the same time, I purchased. I'm trying to think here if I give you the longer story, the short story.
Go with the Midway.
Okay, Midway was. I had been up in Seattle working from '93 to '94. But I still had roots in Colombia. I just came up to work, make some money so I could buy another guitar, buy some cymbals for the drums. And about 2 weeks before I was flying back to Colombia, I met a friend. He later became a friend, and that's a long story. But he told me, "Hey, I have to take you down to friends of mine before you travel." He has a label. It's called Moribund Records. His name is actually Odin Thompson from Moribund. If you want to buy some music before you go home, I'm going to take you there. And this was my true gateway. I'd already heard some Die Mysteries Dom Satanas.
So now you're going down to the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you the answer that you want. And I went there and I met Odin. I went into his apartment, his flat, like you call him here. And I remember telling him right off the bat, I said, hey, so I'm here. I remember he was playing something in the background when I got there, and I said, what is that? He said, if you don't know who Fenris is, you're a fucking poser. But I just received this from Fenris, and it's called Viking black metal. And the name is Isengard.
Okay.
And this was early '94. And it was a Sony cassette. So it wasn't even the official.
So it was something like, let me guess, the first album, well, the only album by Isengard then.
But it was either, I don't know if it was a rehearsal or a demo or the album, but we're talking something like March '94.
So it was like either Vinder Skugga Höstmörke.
But I'm almost tempted to say it was rehearsal tracks.
Okay.
Because back then, Moribund Records was, now I'm going to have to send them this interview, but Moribund Records is a cult phenomena within black metal.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do know, like all the guys up here north, they were sending him raw material rehearsals from the get-go. Anyway, it was me walking into his flat. Stereo was blazing. My friend Chris, hey, I want you to meet a friend of mine, Jason. Stereo's going. It's Isengard. And the only thing I told him was, I'm here to buy some music, and I wonder if you have Bathory the Return on CD, and I'm looking for the greatest black metal right now you have on CD. And I explained to him what I wanted. And he says, I have the new Immortal. It's called Pure Holocaust.
Wow.
And I have one copy left, and it just came out this month.
So you have to buy it.
So I bought it. And again, I hung out for a few hours, get in my car, drive home. The drive home, this was in Seattle. I lived like 40 minutes outside of Seattle. And the first thing I did was put Bathory Return on, because I had never listened to Bathory Return on digital format. So I wanted to hear what it was like on CD. And I remember scanning through it, being blown away, take it up. I put this Pure Holocaust in, and I can't tell you the level of, it was like getting into a spaceship and being launched into another universe far beyond anything humanesque that we can even imagine. The guitar tone, the guitar style, of course the vocals, I had heard them a bit from Tormentor and Mayhem, but all that, the speed, the velocity, the artistic level of elitism, like we call it then, was so beyond my...
So is this the reason of Inquisition sounding so Nordic
course, absolutely, and yeah, absolutely. And the other reason, though, we were never so Nordic sounding was we had to. It's important. You have to have your own flair. You have to have your own personality. So I'm never going to sound, no matter how much I try, like something Nordic, but absolutely inspired and influenced. And what I added was, back then, I'm sure by now a lot of viewers understand that. I'm going to skip a little bit. So Pure Holocaust, Die Mysteries Dom Satanis, and overall the things, yes, much more obscure releases as they came on over the years were a huge inspiration. But Pure Holocaust was the actual door that just opened and told, oh, I'm going to mention something here. People will get a little emotional that shouldn't be watching the interview. Taras, and I'm sorry I can't express Norwegian, not express. I lost my pronounce. I can't pronounce Norwegian correctly, but Taras from Burzum.
Yeah.
His album, so all the early Burzum and then Pure Holocaust at the time just was mind-blowing. And I heard those albums as they were coming out. Not the first Burzum, but the third Burzum, Taras, my favorite. That and Pure Holocaust were the biggest influence on me. Inspiration.
I can totally get it, because one of my first black metal albums ever was actually Pure Holocaust.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that was like 1994 as well. And I remember those days. It was like, for me, as a kind of a death metal head, to get hard into those vocals.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to. Was I got to see you for the first time like almost like 20 years ago.
Oh,
when
wow.
actually playing our home city.
Really?
Yep,
Oh,
that was in Turku.
with Arto?
I'm not sure.
Arto and Black
probably.
Witchery?